You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by Twin Spires.
A big run from Howling Time with a 3-wide bid at the quarter pole. At the rail, Benevengo, just behind them, Cyberknife, and then Taba. They turn for home. It's Jack Christopher in front. Howling Time. Taba switches to the outside, and he's now putting in a strong bid. And here comes Taba. Taba in the center of the track with good-looking stride. Squares off with Cyberknife. Cyberknife takes the lead. Taba going with him. These two in a thriller. Cyberknife just in front. And Cyberknife has won the TVG.com Haskell over Taba. Jack Christopher finished third, and Howling Time was fourth. The running time, 1 minute 46.24 seconds.
Well, Cyberknife punched his ticket to the Breeders' Cup Classic with that game win in the Haskell. Frank Miramati had the call, but it appears as if trainer Brad Cox is instead leaning toward the dirt mile for Cyberknife. Is that the right decision? Plus, as Lava Man prepares to make his final on-track appearance in the Breeders' Cup, should he be considered the greatest claim of all time? And is the new HISA, Horsemen's Advisory Group, enough to silence its detractors that we've heard from over the past several months? We're going to discuss those topics and much, much more coming up on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin, and it's all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business. And it all starts just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
All right, gentlemen, let's kick it off with the news that came out on Monday with HISA announcing the addition of a 19-member Horsemen's Advisory Group. Detractors of the organization had been questioning the idea that horsemen didn't appear to have a voice. Well, now it appears that they are going to. Dale, I'll come to you first. Is this enough to alter the perception of naysayers when it comes to the Horsemen's Integrity and Safety Authority?
Well, it's a major step in the right direction. I think Lisa's done a great job running this organization since she came on board. She really has no alliances to anyone. She's open to changing what needs to be changed and fix the problems that we've had. And I'm glad she did it. It was discussed a lot over the summer. And what it's going to do, I think, going forward is when they want to make a rule change, you run it by the people that's going to affect them most and let them give you the pros and cons of making a change. I think it's definitely it's going to help the situation. It's going to make things a lot better. And they're doing it. I was very negative against this organization coming, but now it's in law. We got to do something. We got to do it. So we might as well try to make it right and make it work. And I think Lisa's been the perfect fit for the job, and putting this little advisory board together is going to help everybody.
It's about time they did this, because I guess there was 19 people that are involved with horse racing that are now going to be on this feedback team. People like Mark Cassie and Ron Moquette and Graham Motion, industry leaders, owners. You want to have people that are involved in the day-to-day operation of the game to be able to give their input when they have these rulings. I mean, it'd be like if you're making a cake, you want to talk to a baker. You don't want to talk to me, right? It's something that is it had to be done, because I think it would lose so much credibility if you don't have horsemen involved in the conversation on this. And I saw somewhere where there was like 250 people that applied for these spots, and it can only be beneficial to the game when you have people that are involved in the game and know the game that are going to weigh in whenever there's an issue that comes up. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's a really good group too. It's very diverse geographically, and a lot of women, men. It's a little bit of everything. I think it's a good group, a lot of different expertise from different people on this board. I think it's and I honestly believe, and she's told me herself, that it's not just a front. She wants to listen to everybody's opinions and build a sound foundation for this organization to do the right thing for a long time to come. So I think it's a major positive.
Dale, you should be on it.
No, I don't have time. I mean, they don't want to hear from me, but there's good people on there. And, I mean, Frank Jones is, you know, my relationship with Frank, and he's actually the vice chairman of the Kentucky State Racing Commission. I think a guy like him is going to be very helpful in the regulations and the rules. And I think you got guys, like you just said, Mark and Ron, that can talk from the barn census perspective of what's best for the horses. And I just think it'll help them not make mistakes and have to go back and fix things. But I think it's very positive that Lisa's listening and wants to hear more information, and I honestly believe she's going to use this board quite a bit.
And I hope she does. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think too, Dale and Timmy, I think as we look ahead to the different aspects of HISA that are still yet to roll out, and one of those being the regulations of and the oversight of medications and testing in the sport, I think it's critical that you have people that this is going to impact, trainers and owners and breeders on this committee, where they can now have a voice and say, wait a minute, I like this, but I don't necessarily think this other way is the way that we should be going. I think that's critical when you get to those types of issues, don't you?
I do, and I think that the good thing that's going to come out of here, too, is when there's going to be a change, there's an explanation of why there's a change and what problem it's fixing. And I think that's what happened with a lot of the rule changes they made right off the bat, is nobody understood why we needed different shoe rules. And if there's a study out there that shows horse soundness is related to the type of grabs they have on their shoes, then explain this is why we're doing it. And I think you'll have a lot easier response from the people that the change is affecting.
And you'll have veterinarians also on this, and farriers, and
yep.
It seems like they've covered just about every base. So I think it's just a win.
Yeah, kudos to HISA for making that move and creating that Horseman's Advisor group. We'll see how things play out in the months ahead. All right, topic number 2. The Great Lava Man is going to make his final appearance on the track during the post parade for this year's Breeders' Cup Classic. After taking Hot Rod Charlie to the gate as his stable pony, Lava Man will live out the rest of his days at Old Friends here in Lexington. He was claimed for $50,000 in 2004, and upon his retirement from racing in 2009, he had won 17 races and banked more than $5.2 million. So, Tim Wilkin, I'll go to you first on this one. Is Lava Man the greatest claim of all time?
Well, he's certainly in the conversation. And the thing with Lava Man is that he became more – I mean, he was a great racehorse, but it seems like he became more popular once he left the track. You know, the stuff that he's doing with Hot Rod Charlie and being the stable pony, or coach, as Doug O'Neill calls him. As far as, you go through history and, Seabiscuit was a claimer. The great Stymie was a claimer. John Henry. Charismatic ran in a couple claiming races that wasn't taken. But, one that is more recent, I mean, Rich Strike, the 80-1 Derby shot, was claimed for $30,000 after he broke his maiden by 17 and changed lengths last years. For Eric Reed did that. That's I'm not saying Rich Strike's in the conversation with Lava Man, but there's a lot of decent, good, maybe spectacular horses that have gone through the claiming ranks. I mean, it's kind of like, some of these horses weren't expected to do anything, and then all of a sudden here they come. It's kind of like Aaron Rodgers, who was the 24th pick in the NFL draft in 2005. No one expected much of him, and look what he did. But yeah, Lava Man, it has to be one of the top horses that was claimed and went on to do such wonderful things. But there's a bunch of other ones that are on that list too. Some of them weren't claimed, but they were in claiming races, which tells you that, at first their connections didn't think too much of them. But Lava Man, he's got to have a special place in the hearts of claimers all over the world.
Yeah, I would say it's hard to top John Henry. I think he was claimed for $25,000 and originally was purchased for $1,500 and went on to retire, the richest racehorse of all time. It'd be hard to it would be hard to knock him off the perch, but I don't think any connections have gotten any more fun out of a claim than Lava Man. I would say he's the most important to his connections of all time.
I also think he's going to
be kind of sad not to see him on the track anymore.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be missed in that respect because he's become known around the barn as the coach because of his impact and the way he's served as a coach or a mentor to the young horses that he's around in the barn. Dale, is that a thing? Can they learn from other horses like that?
They're herd animals, and there's a leader and there's a follower. So I think there's no doubt in nature that they'll learn from other animals. And I think if you just have a calm source around them, they like that. They like the calmness. And I've seen him around. He's definitely a smart horse and a calm horse. And if they are learning, they're learning from the right one. He's a cool horse, and I'm sure Doug will hate the day that he walks out of the barn to go be over to old friends with all the other greats.
But he's going to be such a popular addition at Old Friends. He'll be coaching the fans there. It's right. The cool thing too about. His saddle. He has his own saddle club that says Coach Lava Man on it. And when he would walk out on the. I saw him at Parks last year before Hot Rod Charlie won the PA Derby and the days leading up to it, and Lava Man walked out on that track with Hot Rod Charlie like he owned it, and it was just a really cool thing to see.
I just hope he's happy in retirement. I've seen a lot of those old horses like him go off to retirement and they hate it. They don't like being out in the field. They want to be out working. So I hope he's happy in retirement.
Yeah, well, we'll wish Hot Rod Charlie, we'll wish Lava Man all the best as they team up one more time before this year's Breeders' Cup Classic in 2 weeks. Hard to believe. All right, time now to include our good friend Nick Zito into the show as we play a few rounds of right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
All right, guys, 3 topics all pertaining to news that came out with Breeders' Cup horses this week. The first one, trainer Fausto Gutierrez says that his champion, Latruska, may try the filly and mare sprint this year and not the distaff. Would that decision be right or wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right?
Dale?
That's a good question. I hate to second guess any trainer, so I'm going to say it's right. The guy knows his horse, he knows his filly, he knows where she belongs. I'm going to say it's the right decision.
It looks to me that, like any athlete, no athlete ever beats Father Time, and I think Father Time might be catching up with Latruska. The longer distances maybe isn't something that she wants to do anymore. And, she has always shown speed, and maybe this race, the shorter distance will be more liking to her as her career winds down. So I think it's the right decision because, the distaff is just, it's stacked. And I would hate to see Latruska go out there and get her head handed to her with everything that she's done in her career. So I think, it's not to say that she's ducking anybody. She's done plenty in her career, but for her to go out with a chance to win a race, and not that this race is any more of a easier spot, but I think she has a better chance to win this than she would the distaff.
I flipped back through her past performances, and I couldn't find another time that she sprinted. I think most of her races, except for maybe very, very early on, have always been longer distance races. Dale, is that a concern?
Well, yeah, but I'm banking on the man knowing his horse. And, it's always concerning. We talk about it all the time. When you're doing something you haven't done before or trying something new, there's always some concern. But who knows? Maybe she's better. If Father Time does creep up on him, and the sprint might be a little easier on her.
Yep.
Yeah, because she is fast. That's the way she runs. She'll go out and she'll run hard from the start. And maybe that's the mark of a sprinter.
Well, let's talk about the decision of another top horse, and that's the one made for Cyberknife. Trainer Brad Cox is leaning toward the Dirt Mile over the Classic for his multiple Grade 1 winner. Would that decision be Right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Timmy?
Absolutely, it's the right decision. I mean, Brad Cox doesn't want to send Cyberknife up against that monster from California, does he? I mean, the Breeders' Cup Classic is just loaded with, and we've talked about this, with the likes of Flightline and Life is Good and the three-year-olds Taba and Epicenter. I think, yeah, you're not going to say you're going for an easier spot because there's no easy spots in the Breeders' Cup. But I think Cyberknife has a better chance to win the Dirt Mile than he's got to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I applaud Brad Cox for this decision.
Absolutely right decision. It's there aren't easy races in Breeders' Cup, Tim, but there are some easier than others. And the mile's obviously going to be an easier race. The horse is fast enough, and Brad's proven over his career he's great at picking the right spots and trying to win the race. He doesn't go out just to be playing it. He knows his horse, and I'm sure he'll represent well in the mile.
All right, I don't think this third topic is as cut and dry as the first two. So we have legendary jockey Frankie Dettori, who is going to replace regular rider Rafael Hernandez aboard Queen's Plate winner Moira in the Filly and Mare Turf. Now, we see this all the time in big races, right? And I always say, dance with the one that brung you, rather than going for the bigger name on line two. Is this decision to replace Hernandez with Dettori right or wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Okay.
Dale, what do you think?
Well, I'm like you. I like sticking with one jockey, and I like my jockeys knowing they're not going to get fired. I think they go out and ride with more confidence and do better. But, since Bad Day retired, I haven't worried that much about getting which jockey I get. But anytime you can get Frankie Dettori, it's hard to pass him up on the grass.
Well, I mean, it's you go back to the E.P. Taylor, the last race that Moira was in with Mr. Hernandez, and they were DQ'd. They got beat by neck by Chad Brown's Rozier, and he was DQ'd for some tough interference in the stretch. He went from second to eighth. I'm wondering if that has something to do with Kevin Attard, the trainer, making a switch. I mean, if he was, I haven't seen anything about that, but you get DQ'd from second to eighth with a horse that won the Queen's Plate. Maybe you're thinking, well, I got to get someone else on board for a big race, for the biggest race, and I'm going to go with the best guy I can find. Nothing against Raphael, but he must have done something that ticked off Kevin Attard because he's not on him anymore.
I don't think he did anything to tick him off. I think it's more of a fact that Frankie Dettori's available. And you're not talking about one of the best riders in the country or one of the best riders in the world. You're talking about one of the best riders of all time. And it would be kind of hard to leave him in the room if he's wanting to ride your turf horse.
Yep. All right. Back with another edition of Right or Wrong. I'll try to come up with topics you guys can disagree on next week. I think we went 3 for 3 with both of you agreeing on the same topic and taking the same angle. So I'll see if I can do better next week for you. Topic
we had
number
lunch together. That's why.
Exactly. Topic number 4. While most trainers already have their Breeders' Cup roster set, the Hall of Famer Steve Asmussen is kind of channeling his inner Lee Corso and saying, well, not so fast, my friend. The Asmussen-trained Gunite is the 6-5 morning line favorite in today's Perryville at Keeneland. If he runs well, he is under consideration for the Dirt Mile or the Sprint on November 5th. Dale, let me come to you first on this one. Do you like the idea of horses, especially Gunite in this situation, wheeling back in one of those two Breeders' Cup races on just 14 days rest?
Well, that depends on the guy doing it, but I love it in this situation. Steve knows what he's doing, and he's won enough Breeders' Cup and enough races. He's not going out there just to practice. And it also, to me, shows when you see a horse wheeling right back real quick, that means that horse is doing super well, and they're excited to run him. I think that it's a positive, and I think if it happens, he'll run big.
Well, in the case of Gunite, I mean, he's been on a pretty steady pattern where he's been running every 4 weeks, and if Steve decides after this race that he wants to go to the Breeders' Cup, I mean, he'll be doing something that the horse will be having to do something he's never done before, and that's to run on this short rest. obviously the horse is doing very well this year. He hasn't been worse than second, I believe, in 5 starts this year. No, or is it 5? I don't know, 3 wins and 2 seconds this year he's got. Mm-hmm. But I think that, like Steve will, maybe it's a fact-finding mission. This is his first time at Keeneland, I believe. Maybe he wants to see if he likes the track and go from there. The Perryville's a $250,000 race, 7 furlongs. I'm scratching my head on this one. I don't know if it's the right call or not. I mean, who am I to question Steve Asmussen's a Hall of Fame trainer? But to me, I think it coming back on 2 weeks rest was something the horse hasn't done. A little risky. Yeah.
Do you normally like horses coming back on 2 weeks rest, guys?
They used to do it all the time.
Yes, I do. I think it shows a sign of a horse doing well.
I mean, it's God. It used to be these iron horses. They back in the day, they'd race every 7 days. I mean, but that was a different time and a different era. But the horse would have to be doing really, really good to, I would think, come back in 2 weeks, and maybe he is. Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to find out. He's got to run well in the Perryville later today first, and then we'll see if he wheels
and
him right back.
And he's running against some pretty good horses there, too. Torius, who was in the Travers, who Chad Brown thought was, maybe his best 3-year-old, even though he ran 6 Pinehursts in this race, too. So it's not like this is a layup. This is a tough race.
Yeah, it's another thing. It's not like he has to fly across the country and go over to Santa Anita after running at Keeneland and try to rebound from its race on an airplane. I think it works. It'll work out well for him. If Steve runs, the horse is doing good, and he's going to run well.
Does it change your thoughts about coming back on 14 days if he gets into a long stretch battle and he really has to work to win this race later today? Let's say he wins by a nose, but he's all out to do it. Does that change your opinion, or do you just have to watch how the horse does over the next couple of days before you make the call?
I think you trust in Steve. Let him watch over the horse, and he won't run him if he thinks he's knocked him out.
There you have it. Steve Asmussen, the all-time winningest trainer in North America. I think he certainly knows what he's doing. We'll see what happens here with Gunite after the Perryville later today. All right, it is time now to give Dale and Tim the opportunity to make one final point as we wrap up the show with the West Point of the Week presented by our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. And don't forget that you can experience the lifestyle of thoroughbred racehorse ownership with the gold standard in racing partnerships for over 30 years, 3 decades. West Point Thoroughbreds has been doing it and doing it at a very high level. Text HORSE to 66866 to learn about ownership. All you have to do is text HORSE to 66866, and the great folks at West Point will help you out and teach you all about owning horses in the game of thoroughbred racing. That is the gold standard in racing partnerships. Message and data rates may apply. All right, guys, Timmy, I'll come to you first. It is time for your parting shot. What is your West Point of the Week?
Well, I got to give a shout-out to someone I don't even know because they canceled their reservation at the Media Hotel in Lexington for the Breeders' Cup because the hotel was filled up. And if I was going to go, I could have gone and stayed in a room with 2 other guys, and I didn't feel like doing that because that's like what you do in Animal House. You don't do that as a grown-up. So I finally got a room to myself, and I'm going to the Breeders' Cup, and I only wish my pal Dale was there.
Yeah, I wish I was going too. But my point of the day is going back to our first topic, and that's HISA. I think that they've shown that they're willing to work with horsemen and do the right things. It's law. It's here. Let's all work together and get it right.
There you have it. Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin. Guys, we'll do it all over again next Saturday morning. Appreciate it.
All right,
thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
All right. And if you have a topic you would like to hear Dale and Tim debate, you know what to do. Email it to me, Mike at horseracingradio.net, and I'll try to work it in to the show for you over the next week or so. I Ask, They Answer is presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business, and I'm back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.